We have to do the
got to do the intro for
God
520.
damn it. Oh my God. As opposed to 420. All right. So,
you would think it's 420 if you were whole 420-ish.
howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 521 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley, and with me again is Mr. Terry Mixon. How the hell are you, Terry?
Jazz hands.
Really? We're going to start with jazz hands. We're really going to start with jazz hands?
Yes, we just did.
See, this is what I got to put up with. Jazz hands.
Do you have something against jazz hands?
I've got something against jazz hands because they don't answer my question, which was, how the hell are you? You don't give me jazz hands.
It does. Jazz hands means that I'm doing pretty damn well, doesn't it? It's an upbeat sort of thing. It's not like, I'm sitting here going, that's probably negative.
Well, here's the problem.
I mean, I'm not doing so great, but jazz hands is a good thing.
Here's the problem. Listeners can't see jazz hands.
That's why I said the word jazz hands. I think I pretty well covered the audio portion of this.
Doesn't work. Try again.
I'm not going to try again. No, I refuse.
Oh, God damn it. What is going on with you? Stop being a pain in my ass.
Things are good. I'm writing on Raid on Terra, so we'll see whether or not they actually get there this time, and I have to change the title again. But I'm herding everybody in the right direction. Things are looking promising. I'm about to drop them all into problematic encounters that are going to just basically mess with their lives. So that's good. Which it's more challenging when you've got two separated groups of characters that you're herding in the same direction, and you have to drop them into the pickle in different ways.
Yep. Been there, done that. Just did it again.
But it's fun. What else is going on? I started on a short story as well that I'm writing for the next Four Horsemen anthology, number 6. So that's going to be fun. Torturing a character there, which is my goal in life, at least in half of those stories, has been to drop references to one person in particular. So this time I've decided to make that person the point of view of the story.
Ah, gotcha.
And oh my gosh, who knows how that will be received?
About as well as the rest of them.
Well, he appeared as a secondary character in a number of, as references in a couple, as an actual secondary character in one, and now it's his time in the spotlight. We'll see what the publisher says. The publisher may go, "This is too dangerous. We can't go down this road." So I may be writing this story in vain, but it's going to be fun to write it anyway.
All right. Fair enough. Anything else?
Nothing that I'm then going to mention before next week.
Okay.
I'll have a secret that I've been working on some stuff that will come out next week sometime.
Everybody hold on to your hats. Terry's ready to rock and roll.
It's totally true.
Well, it's all lies, actually, but still.
You are such a Debbie Downer.
A Debbie Downer? Really? You're going to call me a Debbie Downer now? What the hell?
It's the hair.
Well, let's see. Evolution is nearing 16,000 words. Man, the first section, which pretty much ties up the end of Evolution in a nice big bow, kicked off a whole shitload of other plot problems that I cannot wait to see how they are resolved.
Warning, plot complication.
Oh,
Warning, yeah. Plot complication.
So, it's funny. I got through that portion, and then I was like, I need to go set this other thing up. So I was like, I think I know how this needs to happen. Now I need to go find out if it can happen. So last 2 days have been looking at testing concrete, porosity of concrete, differences between a storm sewer, a storm drain, and a sewage sewer, what a combination sewer is, possible types of pipe used in old versus new. And then I found the Harris County sewer map.
I'm sure no good will come of that.
And you can click on it and get statistics on when that pipe was installed, when it was last inspected, what it is made out of, etc. And infinitum. It's all right there on the Public Works. That was terrifying to me.
No good will come of this.
So I learned lots of really interesting things about concrete. So I went from, studying hearing loss and deaf community to now looking at concrete. Welcome to my world.
That's quite a switch.
So in the process of doing that, of course, I need people for things, and that means I had to.
You need victims.
I needed to set some characters up, and basically, I've created a nice little Three Stooges theme that's going to be running through this entire section of the book. So it's going to be kind of fun. Looking forward to it.
It makes you wonder if we reached a day and age where most people have no idea who the Three Stooges are.
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, there are people out there who've never heard Who's on First.
Yeah, Laurel and Hardy is a lost thing for many people who go, what?
Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, all of it. That's terrifying, isn't it?
It is actually terrifying.
Oh my God, we're watching our childhoods become, and our parents' childhoods become more and more irrelevant every day.
We're watching our own history become history.
Correct. Which technically happens if you stand in any one place for more than a few seconds.
I can accept that.
It's all relative. So I'm still waiting on a cover from hear about a cover for Evolution, getting beta reader comments back this week. So I'll begin putting together the final version of Evolution, hopefully in the next week and a half.
That's awesome. I thought of one other thing that I ended up doing is I went halvesies in with someone on a year's all access subscription to Masterclass, and I've been listening to the Dan Brown lesson. Totally interesting.
So you're getting something out of it, is what you're telling me.
I am. How many times does one get to sit down and have a New York Times bestselling author talk to you about the process of writing?
Probably not very often.
I've got James Patterson queued up to go after him and all kinds of other things going on in there. It's not just writing on that side. I've got some cooking stuff to look at that seems like it would be interesting. Gordon Ramsay, I bet he cusses at me. He probably doesn't. It's probably much more professional than that.
I don't know.
I've seen him on a cooking show for kids, and his personality was totally different than when he was doing adults.
He's playing a role.
He's playing a role when he does that, so he can turn it off.
It's like Anthony Bourdain. They had him on Archer where he was doing his shtick as Gordon Ramsay's version of Anthony Bourdain. Oh my God, it's hilarious. It is so bad. Hey, should you be smoking in here? Should you be flaming in here? It's it's just bad.
Archer is by definition bad.
Yeah, but this particular episode's really good in a horrible way.
No, that's Archer all over. It's good in a horrible way.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the entire show.
Exactly. But the Anthony Bourdain thing was just so damn funny because he was making so much fun of himself.
It's like when South Park gets a hold of.
Yeah, and does all sorts of horrible things to it. Yes.
But we've wandered off course for the intro. But
yes,
my wife was watching one last night where they were hunting man bear pig.
Yes,
and they had to go find Al Gore, who was masquerading as a bowler in a nearby town. Oh boy.
Yeah, you should play the video game so you can fight Man Bear Pig and Al Gore and his Secret Service detail. It's a bad time. It's a bad time. He's actually one of the more difficult bosses to beat in that game. Those two games.
How in the hell? What do they people smoke to come up with these?
Dude, I don't know. But you know what? There are people who say the same things about us. So
Nobody's ever asked me what I smoke to come up with my stories. Maybe it's only you.
Maybe it is only me. I don't know. Who knows?
Quick, pull us back into the intro.
I'm trying, man. You're making it very difficult to segue. I hate clumsy segues. They make me wince.
Well, one thing that I saw about that man bear pig Al Gore sort of thing was it brought a lot of different story threads together, and there's a lot of potential to come back to like they've done and revisit this and write a completely different story based on the same set of characters and even the same set of incidents.
Wow, that's a really convenient statement to make.
Is it?
Oh, it's a very convenient statement to make.
I intended it to be so.
Because see, while I was working on my nano project, something happened.
Did it involve tennis shoes, a 2x4, and lube?
It did not.
Okay, go on.
Although now I have to type a note. And so anyway, we're going to discuss today about reusing conceits and characters. I got a problem, Terry.
You've got a lot of problems.
I've got one specific one I want to talk about today.
Okay.
It actually involves more than a few little pieces that we can get into, but the bottom line is you have an idea for a book. That is the conceit. Okay, that is the underlying theme plot that's undergoing. And typically what I do is those are physical characteristics or mental characteristics of the person. Mm-hmm. And how they are interacting with whatever they have to deal with. So you come up with this great idea for a character, and they've got some power or mental or physical defect, and suddenly you realize you have a story for that person, but then you end up with 3 different branches you could go with that same character. And now you want to write all 3 books with that character, but they are all different characters, if you understand what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. And weirdly enough, I saw a series of books being advertised just a couple of days ago that talked about something very much like that. These were post-apocalyptic stories. They were told from the set of a group of people. But the conceit of that particular series is each book uses those people to go through the apocalypse, but it's a different apocalypse every book. It might be zombies one time. It might be an alien invasion the next time. They start over fresh. Different heroes take the lead. Different heroes do different things. It always starts with the same people. Different people live. Different people die. But there you are.
That is insane.
Isn't it nuts?
How popular is that series?
I haven't got the slightest idea. Like I said, I only saw the advertisement for it a couple of days ago.
It leads me to a question about reader expectations in a way, which also kind of want to get into here. Stephen King said once that when he was writing Bag of Bones, I think Bag of Bones, the protagonist is a writer. Shocking. Stephen King, I think, now has 7 or 8 different books where there's a writer in the mix. And usually is the main character. So when he was writing Bag of Bones and he was telling his wife about it, she said, "Oh God, Steve, another writer." Really? And the problem is with somebody like Stephen King, who gives a shit, you're going to go read it anyway. It could have 15 different writers. He could have 30 books with nothing but writers and people will read it. The question is, though, when you're talking about a very striking thing, not an occupation. I mean, Dick Francis, I think, had what was it? It was horse racing, right? All of his books were about horse racing, if I remember correctly. You know what I'm talking about?
No, not at all.
Wow. They were all mysteries. I never read any of them, but they were all mysteries. Anyway, that's an occupation thing. You can recycle that pretty damned easily. But when you're recycling something like being deaf or being blind or those kinds of marks on the characters, when does it get tired? When does it get old? How many different stories can you tell with that conceit and get away with it? And what is the reader expectation on that front? Is it going to piss people off? Are they just going to say, "Oh, another book about a deaf or blind person or whatever"? How is that going to be received?
I honestly have no idea. I've never thought about it before.
See, that's why I wanted to bring this up, because theoretically, I could combine two of these stories into one. It would be very tricky, but it could.
Two heroes coming from different stories. One will save the world.
No.
One will go to the bathroom.
No.
Okay, no. I got nothing.
I can blend two of the stories. Blending three would be difficult. But what I discovered is I want to spend more time dealing with this character outside of horror or sci-fi or any of that. I want to deal with them just straight real world, real life.
In a world where a horror character does nothing but picnics. No, okay, maybe not.
No, not quite. But it's more, I guess it would be a more literature as opposed to necessarily genre fiction.
This is a bad idea.
Shut up. But the thing is, it would very easily turn into a romance novel. Shit, it might be a romance novel. Seriously.
I'm not doubting you.
So it's just a question I have is, if you've, like, for instance, how would fans react? How would readers react if I put out another story like Derelict that just has to do with the ship and no AIs, none of this other bullshit? Make it a zombie shoot 'em up.
I have no idea. I suspect that you would have a mixed bag. I suspect you'd have some people that were perfectly fine, and some people is their hair, what little they have of it, catches on fire.
See, it leads. I guess the way to describe it is, when you write that plot, are you burning that book? Are you burning that bridge behind you?
I think the answer is no, but I'm just unsure how what you just said will be received. There have been plenty of times where people have reused plots, reused themes, reused settings, and it works out just fine. One never really knows until one tries.
I found it to be an interesting question because I can easily see that happening because of how interested I am in the deaf community and all the things that come along with that. I want to write about it from, all these different points of view and change things around because it radically affects how the character is. And one story I have is for an actual, never an actual capital D deaf person, not hearing impaired, but no hearing at all. And try and write a story from that point of view as well. And then I read an article today, a post written by a woman who was capital D deaf. And then she got cochlear implants, and she was describing the pain that goes along with that, which I had never thought of before. If you're young, you develop these neural pathways really fast. Because it was stimulating, pretending to be the nerves that were supposed to be there to listen to that, her brain was forming neural pathways in like a couple of weeks. And so it was on fire all the time. It's an interesting idea. I like all these things that come around with it.
One of the things I want you to be aware of, that if you go ahead and write a character that is a capital D deaf, you could get some pushback from people that are capital D deaf. Because when folks think that someone who is not like them is pushing in and appropriating some aspect of themselves, their culture, their disability to do something, they can get pretty outraged about it. As an example, I wrote a story that was accepted for an anthology that had a lesbian character back when I was writing erotica. And I got some pushback on that because I am obviously not a lesbian. But it was picked up for an anthology that was a finalist for the Lambda Award. So obviously the story didn't suck, but you never know. People that knew that I was a man pushed back a little bit because I was writing something that I was not. So just be aware that that could come for you.
The way I would handle that as much as possible is to recruit some small d and capital D folks to read the book and check it that I'm not pissing. I mean, obviously somebody's going to get angry.
I'm not even saying that you're going to get it wrong.
Oh, okay. I see.
I'm just saying that simply because you are not deaf in any way, shape, or form, writing a main character protagonist that is deaf in some way or another, you may get pushback from the community simply because you are hearing.
Well, yeah, fuck them. I'm not a scientist either.
Hey, that's not exactly, inclusive. You can't do that.
Well, I mean, the question is, so what you're saying is now I shouldn't write the stories.
No, I'm not. I was merely cautioning you
so
that if you hadn't thought about it, be aware that you get some pushback.
Hence, I said, fuck them.
I think
because I
believe we've discovered what his answer is going to be to those emails.
Well, I mean, the wonderful thing about writing is that you can educate.
I've never been a superhero. I can't write superheroes.
But I mean, and seriously, I love taking something I don't know about and weaving it in as I'm learning about it and everything else to write a story, because I feel like I want to include those details because I want people to understand what we're talking about. And I think the deaf community, as small as it is, in population, comparatively speaking, I don't think people know much about it. So it'd be fun to go in there and educational for me as the author, but also if I can weave those details, I can actually maybe give folks to, notice, or at least, realize that's there. And they can learn ASL. They can do all these different things if they want to interact with that community. But I think it would be kind of fun to do.
I think you're absolutely right.
I mean, I just love working those textures in. I've never been on an oil rig. Never been on one. But I can do research and can talk to folks about war stories because they're there.
As writers, the best we can do is write an entertaining story. That old trope of write what you know is honestly not a very good one. Don't write what you know. Write what you want to know. Write the stories that excite you about learning new things, because as you're learning about it, you're writing about it. If we all just wrote about what our experience was, what a boring set of books it would be.
I more prefer melding my own issues
insanity
into characters based off other people, or somebody else may have given me the idea for that character, and I'll steal pieces of personalities and put it together that way.
That's it. You just need to take characters that are in the public domain and stick them in the far future.
God, no.
And write your own stories.
No.
Sherlock Holmes.
No. Captain Ahab is not flying a Star Destroyer. It's not happening, okay?
He's going to take out the black. That black thing. I'm going to take her down.
Just see that with a pirate with a freaking peg leg on a Star Destroyer. They got stormtroopers hanging from the ceilings because they failed their accuracy tests.
I think you've just, nailed a story that you need to write. Don't forget the parrot.
Oh, the lawsuits that would fly. What would I call them instead of stormtroopers? What would I call them to get away with that? What would you call them?
I don't know. Something related to storm.
That's what I was thinking.
Trying to think of a good storm related thing there. The typhoon troops are going berserk now, I tell you.
Can't you find me some typhoon troops that can shoot straight?
It's like the wind has curved their eyes and they just can't hit anything.
I'm declaring a mutiny over the economy of what they're teaching these boys. Yeah.
What What's this bit about hot chocolate? You don't need no hot chocolate, just rum. Rum is what you need.
Oh, this just screams to be written by a comedy writer, neither of which we are, which neither of us are.
This is true, although we amuse ourselves greatly.
Yeah. It's like you can come up with that, but where's the goddamn story? You come up with funny scenes, but then you have to try and figure out what the story is around it. That's usually where the problem lies. Scenes are not an issue. So, if you were going to go take one of these stories that shares a conceit with another book that you've written, and you were interested in quote unquote traditional publishing, are you going to face a problem if you basically sell that one book to them and then try and sell the other two that have that same conceit?
Depends on your contract.
Okay.
If you sell something to traditional publishing that uses a certain conceit and then you try to reuse it elsewhere, you might be in violation of that contract unless you're very sure of what that contract says.
Well, it doesn't even have to be copywritten, so to speak. It is a different character, different names, different story.
Well, you talked about using
the same overall theme.
You talked about using the same ship in multiple things there. I was going off of your earlier example, saying it really depends on how you do it, what the contract says. Traditional publishing, that's a shaky bit of ground to get on there if you start sharing themes and conceits, unless you can absolutely delineate them away from what you've contracted out.
Because I think that this goes back to the reason why folks were using pseudonyms to begin with, right?
So they could write erotica.
Or whatever. And not have it come back. And they could essentially reuse the same stories just by changing the setting.
You know, the ironic thing about something like that is I can't remember where I read it, but somebody that had done something somewhat similar to that got nailed for
violating their own copyright, right?
Stealing their own stuff. You know, what do you call that? I've lost my brain. Went off on its own thing there of plagiarism of their own selves.
There are some authors
that can irony in there.
There are some authors I know or I've read that yeah. I'm probably one of them.
There's been a couple of David Weber books that I can think of.
Oh God, that's just mean. That's just mean. That's just so mean.
The problem with, let me explain that. The problem with the way David Weber does his Honor Harrington stuff now is at some point a number of years ago, he split some characters off inside of his universe. And so he's got 3 parallel sets of plots going on that interchange with each other. And it seems that basically the way it works is book A starts at date A and runs to date C. And the next series starts at date B and runs on to D. And so they partially overlap. Right. And so in one of his books, it felt like everything was recycled. It felt like I have read this book before. I'm reading it going, this is all so familiar. I have read this book before. It wasn't. It was a new book, but it covered information coming in belatedly from the other plot lines, so much so that it just struck me as, this is the same damn book. That's one thing you got to watch out for.
And that's a problem for those side quills. Because if there is overlap where they know what's going on or they're getting the information, it's hard to make the story different. It really is. I was worried about that with Arrival. With Outbreak, I wasn't so worried about, because Outbreak is just a shoot 'em up. There's very little science in that. It's just to shoot 'em up. So it was a very different story than the first 2 books. But I was actually concerned about that with Arrival, that it would feel too much like The Black. It would just look like the same story told with different people in a different setting. It wasn't, but I could see how the argument could be made for that.
When you start out a book, you may say, this is going to be similar to this, but then your storyteller takes it off in a different place. You very seldom have to worry about retreading a story to the point to where it feels like you've done it again.
Well, with Static right now, where it's at right now, if it wasn't a NaNoWriMo book, I would have flushed almost everything that I had written and started over.
How many words along are you in that book anyway?
20 grand.
You know, you've only got 10 days left this month. I'm not thinking you're going to make it.
It's not happening. It's not happening. I'm a failure at this. No, it's because I just finished Evolution and Extinction has been growing and now it exploded in my brain when I finished editing. So I'm going to chase it as hard as I can.
You're not going to get any argument from me.
So I still want to get back to Static because I'm in love with this character. I'm in love with his fucked up life. I'm in love with his wife, who we only see through, memories, and they're obviously gilded. And so I'm loving having this guy finally get ripped out of his denial and thrown into reality. I like kind of following that arc and what it takes to get to that other side. That's not a horror book. That's something completely different. So that's the story I'm really interested in writing with this character. Really interested in writing. So the other two would be kind of not as good. And maybe you can put out an omnibus with all three books. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, regardless, Evolution has grabbed me by the nether regions and will not let go.
You can go ahead and contact somebody for this violation of your personal space.
What?
It touched you in an inappropriate fashion.
I'm going to get a restraining order on the Black and all characters associated with it. The judge would be like, you want a what? Mr. Cooley, are you off your meds?
Be great publicity.
Writers sues fictional characters.
Fictional character wins.
See, that sounds like an Onion article just waiting to be written. It really does. Or something on crack.com. It just sounds too goddamn funny. Oh God, the radio drama I could do with that. I just
writer ordered to stay 100 yards away from his computer.
Just from that computer. And forced to change their iCloud account.
That story just about writes itself.
I know. It would just be absurdism. Absolutely absurd. Pirandello would be proud. God. You heard that, Charlie Brown? I mentioned Pirandello. Are you happy now? Was that 5 characters in search of an author? I think is what it's called. Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous, but I like that conceit too. That would be a lot of fun to play with. I mean, Stephen King already kind of wrote the definitive horror book with it, although Peter Straub did it again. But I like that kind of conceit. I'd love to reuse that because it'd be fun. I could never write a horror book like that where a character comes to life, but I can write a comedy with it. That'd be fun. That would be fun.
I read one of those collections of Star Trek stories, and there was a story in there where the actual actors that played on Star Trek were inadvertently pulled into the real world of Star Trek. Just like the mirror universe switch over thing. But in this case, it was the actors being pulled into the show. Or wasn't even a show, it was real.
Is that Galaxy Quest?
It's like Galaxy Quest, but the story came out a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Huh.
It was a written word short story.
Oh, is that the one that Harlan Ellison wrote?
It could have been. At this point, I couldn't tell you.
I can't remember. Anyway.
It was a very interesting one to see.
Well, that's what I loved about Galaxy Quest is it was so damn funny.
It's about time,
not their characters.
It's about time to do a reboot on that, just like everything else from that era.
God, don't say that. I think I did see something about a Galaxy Quest sequel.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. It's like, okay, 10 years have passed. More than that, 3 cast members are dead. What are you guys doing?
It's like 15 or 20 years at this point.
Is it really that long? It can't be that long.
I don't know. I'm not sure how long it is.
It's been a while.
Now I'm going to look while you're talking.
I can't even remember if that movie came out while he was doing Home Improvement or after the show had died. I can't even remember now.
1999.
Wow.
So it's been almost 20 years.
Jeez. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
It is literally time for a reboot. Because Hollywood doesn't know about, creating new intellectual property. They just want to cash in on everything that's come before.
I saw some author going off about that recently. Basically saying you can't make any business deals without losing control of your content at this point. And that's
with Hollywood?
Yeah. Well, not just with Hollywood, with publishers too.
Traditional publishers, that is true. With Hollywood, if you're not afraid to walk away and say no, you can negotiate and get things made to where they are somewhat more equitable.
Yeah, I'm talking about primarily trade publishers, traditional publishers, because they will take all the rights.
You know why, don't you?
We talked about that.
We talked about this. It's because they're not really publishing books. They are now holders of IP. That's what they're buying. And they've got so much already that the vast corporations that owns those traditional publishers, they are not afraid of saying, nope, this is the contract. You got to give us all rights if you want anything. Because they don't care. You can walk away. There'll be 10 more people that'll take your place.
Yep. Which is extremely unfortunate because it used to be much more of an actual relationship and a partnership. It's just not that way anymore at all.
Hasn't been for longer than I've been trying to get into writing. It's been that way for, since the 90s, 80s, 90s, something like that is when this started.
It's when it's late 90s is when the media monopoly began.
Now there will be the big one in the future.
Oh, God.
The big one controls all intellectual property. You cannot have an original thought because the one forbids it.
At some point, you are going to have to read Jennifer Government.
I've read the Jennifer Archives.
No, Jennifer Government. That's about a libertarian society. It is completely fucked. It is beyond fucked. You have got to go read this book.
I've got a book written by a libertarian about libertarian society. We should trade.
Jennifer Government, you have to go to the cops, have money in hand, and be willing to, first of all, prove that they should investigate, and second of all, pay them for it. That's pretty fucked up. And murder investigations are very expensive. It's a very interesting book.
I think his name is Michael Z. Williamson.
I don't think I've heard of him.
He writes science fiction.
Oh, okay.
He's the Bane author.
Ah.
I mean, this is shocking, right? And the book was called Freehold. And it was actually a very interesting take on it. It certainly wasn't perfect, but it was like, that's a society I'd never envisioned. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know that it's going to work out that way.
I don't know. This all looks good, but yeah, here's another one. Jim Jones on Mars.
I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Where did you find the Kool-Aid?
There could be nanites.
It could be. That's why Mars is so uninhabitable today, because humans millions of years ago destroyed the world with their nanites.
Okay. Which one of us is on drugs?
I think I'm in a brainstorming drug or something.
Yeah, you're on a brainstorming drug. We moved in the brainstorming portion of the world. Did you see what Bill Nye said about the stuff on Mars?
On Mars? I saw the headline of where he said they're idiots.
Yeah. Yeah. I read an article about what he said. And the problem I have with some of these folks is they tend not to imagine, and they tend to say things based on current information. For instance, right now, as far as we know, there's no real water source on Mars.
Untrue.
How far deep down is it?
If you go to the North Pole, it's not very far down at all.
Beside apart from the ice.
That's all I'm talking about is the ice.
Okay, because my understanding is we could not get humans to live there. There's no way. At least it would be very difficult because of how cold it is.
Very difficult.
So, assuming...
Hang on a second. You're talking North Pole on Mars?
Yeah.
The temperature range between the North Pole and what it gets to at night on the equator is not as far apart as one might wish.
Well, maybe. My point is that we don't know if there's water like under the ground. We don't know. We don't know if there is organic material underneath the crust. We don't know. So when they say these things, people get all pissed off. But really what it is they're looking at it as far as the information we have today. This is not possible.
Something that people don't understand, and it seems to have been lost in the modern conversation, is a lot of what the scientific method involves is skepticism. Take nothing at face value. Assume nothing. Test it again. Change things, test it again. If you assume that you will be able to have somebody survive on Mars because you assume that there's water, things could go very badly.
Yes, this is correct. But as of right now, with current technology, with current this, current that, and even the technology we expect to have in the next 20 years, barring a massive breakthrough, I think he's probably right.
Elon Musk and his Tesla will prove you wrong.
I think they're probably right. It's not that you could get humans to survive on Mars. It's talking about building a colony. It's talking about being able to grow a population, grow an actual civilization on Mars. And that's what he was really talking about. He wasn't talking about whether or not we can get 3 humans up there to survive. It's long term he's talking about.
If I had to make a guess, water is not going to be the biggest limiting factor of living on Mars. It's a big obstacle that would be hard to overcome. It's going to be the radiation. Because if you don't know this, this may come as a shock to you, but the core on Mars is no longer molten. It does not have a magnetic field. The stuff that our own magnetic field here on Earth protects us from is not protected on the surface of Mars. So long-term radiation exposure, if you don't have a way of protecting the people, you'd have to be underground. You'd have to rarely come out on the surface. There's a lot of danger there for any colonist because that's a very hazardous place to try to live.
Which also makes me wonder whether domes are actually the right way to go. Because
the Mars show that they have on television, they're doing season 2 of it. And this is related to Elon Musk and Tesla. They talked about finding an old volcanic like blowhole, lava tube that they could live in. So they're talking about living underneath the ground.
Right. Right. Until we find a way to mitigate the radiation.
I doubt very seriously you're ever going to find a way to mitigate radiation in something the size of a human being's spacesuit. It's just not going to happen. Just keep dreaming. It's never going to happen.
No, I was talking about a dome.
Oh, yes.
I was talking about a dome. But I think underground would definitely be the way to go, which is very interesting because how many books or movies have you read that actually deal with underground civilizations on planets?
You know, not so many. When I was watching that first season of the Mars show and they were setting up in the lava tube, I'm sitting there going, if this was a Paul E. Cooley story, there would be something at the back end of this lava tube.
You're goddamn right there would be.
And it would not be pleasant.
You're goddamn right there would be. In fact, I have that story synopsis already up. It's on my to-do list.
Look at us. We made it to Mars. We're going to make it. No, you are not.
Well, I just was imagining the first construction bozos that are there doing it. And I could put it in Soul and Beyond universe, or I could put it in a completely different universe and have them start the first construction routines where they're boring in to make all this shit happen. And shit happens.
Having survived the trip to Mars, the hardy colonists discover that Mars is not as uninhabited as they would wish.
See, Terry just needs to be my voice announcer. He needs to write all my back cover copy. He doesn't even need to read the book. He just needs to I just need to tell him what's about and he'll write the back cover copy.
In a world where Terry writes Paul's back cover copy.
Oh God, we have jumped the shark. I had to explain that phrase to my dad and my mom.
Jump the shark?
Yeah, I had to explain the phrase.
Oh my gosh.
They're 78.
Happy Days, is he?
Well, they watched Happy Days before it got ridiculous, I think, because that's when my sister and I stopped watching it. But they had never heard that phrase. So that was pretty funny. It was one of those moments. It's like, oh, generation gap, just slightly. How do you not know Jump the Shark? You had to have seen it. Did you not get to go look it up, get curious and go look it up?
Anytime I run into a phrase I don't understand, I go look it up.
Yeah, I heard some folks use some slang on YouTube and I was like, what the hell context is this? And I had to go look up what they were using the word for and went, okay.
Welcome to getting old, buddy.
Well, no, welcome to English.
Slang has changed since we were kids.
Well, yes, but it's the reappropriation of words as well.
That too.
And it's just
Webster does not approve.
It's just like, gay used to mean one thing and now it means something else. It used to be, it meant you were happy.
Mm-hmm.
Now it has a completely different connotation to it. And so the word no longer exists as it was. The English is such a living language that you can easily see these kinds of things happening to characters over time.
Yeah, somebody pointed out to me, and I read it somewhere on Facebook, and it struck me as hilarious that all of these people writing these stories about vampires that live centuries are completely wrong. They're just going to be this wreckage of a person that their slang is scattered across 200 years of their life.
Yes.
And they're going to keep saying things that make no sense and go, huh? When somebody talks to them.
It's like I used the phrase "come hell or high water" at work way back in the day, and all the folks that were not Texans, which was only one of them, had a damn clue about what that meant or what I was saying. And it's so funny because the context it doesn't work. Literal translation does not work at all. You have to have the context for it, and it just kind of flew over everybody's head. So it's it's funny how that works. But I agree with you. If you had a time traveler or somebody like that, they're going to be picking up stuff from all over the place. And depending on how long they were there, their language and accent and how they pronounce things in other languages may change too.
Well, just imagine 3 paragraphs of dialogue from somebody like that. They could be dropping in stuff from different decades all through there. It makes perfect sense to them as they say it. And anyone from one section of that be going, what the hell did he just say? What was that?
That's what made Blackadder so much fun. BBC series with Rowan Atkinson, otherwise known as Mr. Bean. It took place over four different series in 4 different timelines. The first one took place Dark Ages, the second one Elizabethan, the third one Victorian, and then the 5th one was it wasn't Victorian. The fourth one was Victorian. It was World War I. So late Victorian. They worked in historical jokes about, what Blackadder was saying. He was saying, making assumptions about things that we know historically are not factual. or that he got them completely wrong, but you have to know the history to get the joke. And there are some other jokes that are just about the history itself, the event that occurred. So you have to know the history to get the joke. And they're always ripping off Shakespeare in the second series, which takes place in Elizabethan. The joke works on two different levels. If you know your Shakespeare, you know they did a twist on it. But the fact that the twist is funny, even if you don't know the history behind it. But I love that because it just engages you so much into what's going on there. So if you had a character like that, yes, they're going to be living over 4 or 5 different time periods, and see how much changes. Go look at the French aristocracy before the incident.
Before they were all beheaded?
Yeah, before they were all beheaded. And what happened afterwards? Their collars changed. Suddenly all the men wore high collars. It's an historical, it is a reaction to history. So if you had a time traveler, if you had somebody like that, their wardrobe, everything else they're thinking about could be completely affected by the culture that they're trying to fit into, especially if they're there for very long. I mean, the one exception, of course, is Ford Prefect from Hitchhiker's Guide. But even he started.
Clothing would be screwed up. I mean, you could have a bathrobe with ruffles wearing flip-flops. It's no telling. No telling at all.
Yeah, that was Hitchhiker's Guide. You could have Paul Cooley wandering around mountains wearing his monster slippers. Just totally confused, not understanding where the hell they are. Those are fun mechanics to play with. Those are very fun mechanics to play with.
And we have wandered way away from our subject.
Yeah, probably. So your conclusion about this whole mess is...
do what you're going to do.
Do what you're going to do.
Writer's going to write. Writer's going to write.
So I'd be curious, audience, what are your reader expectations with that? I'm just curious. If a writer going back to the same well, if that's going to be a problem for you as a reader. I'd love to hear your comments on that. So we should probably wrap this up. If you have thoughts or ideas on this particular show, or any show for that matter, you can send us an email at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. I was doing
screwed up your own Twitter address?
Yeah, it's been one of those days. You can join us on Facebook and the listeners of the Dead Robot Society group, where all the crazy happens. If you want to support us, you can become a patron at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content and live shows. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention our wonderful host, Podhoster, who makes all 14 bazillion episodes of the Dead Robot Society available for your ear holes. You can find us on youtube.com/DRS podcast to see our ugly mugs. And I really need to get this order right. If you're a $10 patron, reread your name every week. So,
because if Paul could change them, he would.
Oh, absolutely, I would. So, our $10 patrons this week. Sue Bayman.
Hang on a second. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop you right here. If they haven't changed their name by next week, Paul is going to say something different with your name, and it's going to be embarrassing. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy. Like I'm going to have time to come up with something clever. They are Sue Bayman, JD Barker, Jack F. Erickson, Kelson. If Pinocchio says my nose will grow now, it would cause a paradox. Kelson deal. Isabel Cushy, Rick, it's Nano, and I'll catch up with DRS in December. Shaw. Good luck, Rick. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew, the War on Christmas Music, Bernardi. That is a war that I share in. Resistance.
Not even Thanksgiving yet.
Resist. Chris Winder, Andre Conde Boreas, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Hanley.
Thanks for being our patrons, folks.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, we done?
I think we're done.
I think we're done too. We're recording this. Patrons, you're getting this before Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving if you're American. And the rest of you, I hope you enjoyed yours.
Turkey.
Turkey. On that note, we will get out of here.
Bye,
Bye-bye.